everybody, or good afternoon. I don't know when this is being shown. My name is Susan Howards. I'm a local attorney in Brookline, focusing on domestic violence. And this is the Safety Net, Brookline's cable access television show devoted to giving education, resources, and guests on the topic of domestic violence. Today, we're most fortunate to have Betsy Millane of Gibson Sotheby. And let me just say, Betsy has been nominated for Best in Boston Real Estate Broker. Let's hope she gets it. Betsy Millane will tell you general things realtors see that indicate domestic violence. All the instances of suspected abuse, are viewed in the greatest of confidence. As a real estate professional, she owes her clients confidentiality above all, and here's to that principle in this video. These are the different kinds of abuse: financial, emotional, and physical. And also, Betsy was kind enough to send me a CBS article that within 3 months of the quarantine or lockdown, there will be 15 million more cases of domestic violence. Within 6 months, 31 million. And within 1 year, 61 million. These statistics are courtesy of the World Health Organization. Betsy, do you want to give us a little bit about your background?
Yes, well, I'm a realtor with Gibson Sotheby, and I've grown up in a real estate family. But also, domestic abuse came to me, just kind of sideswiped to me when I was sailing. I was at a sailing camp in my early 30s, and it was a boot camp. And we were on the most uncomfortable boat in the world, and I was bruised from head to toe. One day I was in a store taking a little break from the sailing in shorts and, short sleeves because it was a hot day. And a woman approached me. She'd been looking at my bruises and she asked about them, and I laughed them off. I said, well, this was just a result of sailing. She frowned and she handed me a card and she said that denial is part of the process. It was a hotline for domestic abuse. And that really alerted me to it. I must have looked abused. I had a perfectly innocent answer, but it kind of keyed me into sensitivity on the domestic abuse issue.
Betsy, what are some of the signs of abuse that realtors might see when they're showing homes? Not necessarily what you've seen, but what realtors might see, particularly today in the era of COVID.
Yes, there are 3 indicators of abuse primarily. Unexplained damage to the interior or exterior of the home, such as punched in walls, doors that look as if they've been kicked in, such as bathrooms or bedrooms, or some exit doors, doors that are actually off the hinges, any entrance or exit that looks damaged, the lock and things like that might have been tinkered with and damaged, cupboards and drawers that are out of kilter, that don't look like they're operating the way they should, broken TV sets, curtains, and furniture.
What is the demeanor of the individuals who are in those homes that you've experienced or that others have told you about?
They can act skittish. They don't meet your eye. They explain away bruises or damage to the house by saying, oh, clumsy me, I stumbled and put my foot through the door, or I fell and hurt my wrist, or I fell into that wall. They act particularly, Go ahead.
No, that's all right. Please finish. I'm sorry.
I was going to say they act particularly nervous around their partners. They look at them constantly as if to measure their temper. When ordered to get into a car or go somewhere else, they immediately go. They don't even offer you an explanation. They just break off a conversation and obey. They often keep their partner close. They don't say much without permission. They mirror their abuser in their mannerisms. They repeat what the abuser says, such as, that roof has never been a problem. They'll say, that's right, the roof has never been a problem.
Could you go into a little bit more detail of what you think is behind it, what a realtor should do when they experience something like this, or if they experience something like this? And one more point to the question, Do you think that these indicators are heightened in today's COVID environment? Or do you think they're lessened because people are doubly isolated? They're isolated by the abuser, and they're isolated by the stay-at-home mandate.
I think that they're more isolated than ever. I don't think that if you're being abused, you're going to put your house on the market if you see this damage. That's going to arouse some suspicions. You're also trying to keep your abuser happy.
So what advice would you give to realtors if they walk into a home where they see kicked in doors, where they see somebody who's bruised, where they see the abuser totally controlling the partner? What advice, if any, should the realtor do any?
Well, absolutely. If you can get the person that you suspect is being abused, I mean, often it's sunglasses in the middle of the day in a dark house, long sleeve shirts, long sleeve pants that you see. And if you suspect something, if you can get the person you suspect is being abused alone and just say, "Are you okay?" You can do that. You don't have to, call them up later, perhaps, and just say, "Are you okay?" I would urge people to do that. That might be an in. I would hate for someone to get into trouble for saying something. They can always leave me a note or call me. Leave a note on my car.
You know, today the biggest problem is, and the biggest question for attorneys and social workers and those involved in the area of domestic violence, when a client calls me and says, "I don't know what to do," and they're whispering, "Should I stay or should I leave?" I don't know how to answer that, and I don't think I should answer that. I can only give options. One, do you have a safety plan? Is there a neighbor you could slip a note to? Can you go to your pharmacy and slip a note? Because the isolation today is compounded. They're probably not going to work. They're not dropping kids off at daycare. They're not taking the dogs for walks. So the interaction with the community that they might have had prior to COVID is extremely limited. And what they're finding in Europe is that those who are being abused are going to pharmacies or going to grocery stores and leaving notes. "Please call the police. I'm in trouble. Please help me." I don't know that that is happening today in the United States. In Brookline, we're trying to get the word out to groceries, to pharmacists. Obviously, hairdressers are not open. To some of the other small businesses where people might feel comfortable are not open because they're not emergency employers. So what would you suggest for realtors to do if they see a sign and the person doesn't say anything?
I don't know what the options are. The first person I would call, though, is you. Because I might be able to, through some resources, at least put them in the abused person's way. In other words, drop off a shelter address, drop off someone they can contact to discuss this, drop off some resources they could use to get away that might empower them.
Betsy, let me tell you, in Brookline, we are really blessed. We have wonderful, wonderful available resources. We have the police. We have the Domestic Violence Roundtable. We have so many resources, but the issue is accessibility today when there's the most need. These statistics that you sent me from the World Health Organization are so alarming. How are we going to prevent abuse situations? And it isn't just batterers and partners. Child abuse is up. Elder abuse is up. All of the generations that might have been involved in abuse before, now it's exacerbated. So the things that you are suggesting for realtors, drop a note at the car, slip a note to the realtor, maybe call later, maybe just a facial expression, "I need help," would alert the realtor. But I have a question, and I don't mean to blindside you. I'd like to know if realtors get any training in recognizing domestic violence, number one, in plans of action if they do see domestic violence, number two, and if you're not getting training, is there anything that we could do to suggest to real estate agencies that maybe do a little half-hour training? Call in some professionals, Zoom a training session. What do you think of that?
I think that's a terrific idea. I don't really think that this has been on our radar at all, but it should be, especially now when there's such an increase, such an uptick of it. I think it would empower everyone. So I believe that I'm going to go to Gibson Sotheby's and see if they'd like me to give perhaps a talk with you on what you can do, how you can reach people, and maintain your confidentiality, maintain your professionalism. Don't threaten them.
Exactly. And where is the headquarters of Gibson Sotheby?
I'm not exactly sure. We've got many branches and they operate very much independently, but I'm certain that there is. But there's also another way to go. I mean, I paid dues to Greater Boston Real Estate Board, the National Board, the Massachusetts Board. I think that bringing it to their attention would actually be the first step, and having a little class that people can take. But more than that, I love what you're doing, Susan, because this is making people aware that there are options. They're not trapped. They can reach out to people.
You know, there are so many options, and we've worked so hard in the last 30 years to get these options. And now the dilemma is, how do people take advantage of the options? And many are afraid. Many immigrants whose status may be questionable are afraid to reach out because they think that Homeland Security or ICE is going to jump in and are going to reveal them. Many elder people are afraid because maybe their children are the ones who are taking care of them, maybe the caregiver, and they're afraid they won't have any help. Senior centers, for the most part, are shut down virtually, but they're available by phone. They're available by Zoom. I don't know that elders have the accessibility to Zoom, but I know that many elders feel very, very isolated. Housing authorities, particularly in Brookline, are very, very conscious of what's going on and have many, many resources available. I don't know what the situation is, say, for Gibson Sotheby clients, say in Wellesley, in Needham, or Natick, but it would be good to find out. Do you have any insight into this?
You know, as you were talking, the Center at the Heights in Needham, which addresses the needs of our older population very much, sends out daily emails with videos attached to them. If it would be possible, I would love to send her an attachment of this video to highlight that, you know, elder abuse is out there and where to go if they're a victim of it.
That would be fabulous. And if there are any other localities where you could send the video, that would be most helpful. In the final remaining minutes, and I thank you so much for your time, and I know that you're really putting yourself out there by suggesting that there be training for realtors. I think there might be a little pushback. I would hope not. I'm sure that realtors might not want to get involved in a situation, but even anonymously, if they called 911 or 211, Karen Polito, our Lieutenant Governor, and Charles Baker, our Governor, have made this a priority. They've triaged with the National Safe Link Hotline. But if there's any advice you would give, or if you could encourage other realtors to do what you're doing, it would be most appreciative.
Absolutely. And if you want me to give them advice right now, I will
Sure.
say, don't be afraid to stand up. Don't be afraid to ask. There are so many layers of confidentiality. People take great care here. People don't need to know it came from you. You won't jeopardize your professional relationship. You will simply be doing a good deed in the world, helping a family to heal and to get better.
Betsy Millane of Gibson Sotheby, and I wish you the very best with the best of Boston. Please,
Thank you.
You might Zoom and celebrate.
Thank you so much, Susan. You are the best of the best. Seriously. Anything that comes to you, I find is handled so beautifully. So thank you for being there for everyone.
Well, hopefully we save a life. And quite frankly, to quote Sarah Buell, one of the first of Harvard Law School years ago in this field to publicize it, Sarah was, she moved from upstate New York with a child to get away from her batterer. The batterer found her. She eventually got herself into law school. And her words have stuck with me all these years. If you have never been abused, consider yourself blessed. Thank you, Betsy.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everyone.